In this lecture today, we're going to talk information systems and work order management. What we're going to discuss is the types of information systems we have here on campus and what you can use to find the information necessary to fix the car, maintain the car. We're not going to get too much into work orders though, just more so about how the information system integrates with the work order systems in most shops today. If you're working in an independent repair shop, you're going to be utilizing a lot of the systems that you will see here today. If you're working in a dealership, they have different information systems. I'll log in and show you General Motors information system and the Chrysler information system as we go through this near the end, so that you can see how those as manufacturers work with their systems. It's considerably different than what we have for the aftermarket versus the OE manufacturer in the way of information. However, it seems like one can't survive without the other. Each manufacturer supplies information differently. Some of the aftermarket solutions, or I should say the non-OE solutions, are much better in some areas than the manufacturer. And in some areas, the manufacturer is much better than the aftermarket. So you really, in a lot of cases, need both sometimes to fix the car and to get the information that you're looking for. In the information system world, when I was a technician, it seems like a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. Service manuals were a big thing that we had to use. Books with detailed information on how to repair the vehicle is what they were. You'll see here at the shop when you come in for lab, you'll see some of the books with that detailed information in the shop cabinets, I guess, laying around. You'll probably still use one in the smog class, finding information about timing and where smog components are supposed to be located on the car, or whether or not the car has those components on it. Types of information that's included in these service manuals was the manufacturer manuals, of course, specialized manuals, and general repair manuals. Each one of those manuals have different types of information in them. It was very difficult for us to take a big book in the days of the shop and find the book and find the information. We spent a lot of time in books. But today, in today's time and day and age of computers, everything is loaded into the computer all the way back to 1974, year, make, model vehicles. Some cases, some information systems go a little deeper than that. I think that's by choice, but we're good to at least 1974 with most information systems. This information system is one that we have here at Bakersfield College that you'll use. It's called ProDemand. On the computers, on the desktops, you'll see icons with the name ProDemand, AllData, or Identifix. Those are the three information systems we have. But the ProDemand has a ShopKey Pro system with it, which also integrates invoicing and work order development, so you can create work orders in it. But more so, it has colored wiring schematics, and it has a lot of information as to lube specifications, how much oil is supposed to be in the car, what is the tire pressure supposed to be. All of those are things that are playing out in the information that they give you. So another one that we have is AllData. AllData is very similar to Mitchell, and AllData, personally, I like the AllData wiring schematics better than I do the Mitchell. Personal preference. Some of the instructors may like the Mitchell stuff better than the AllData. It really comes down to personal preference in this of what you like and how you like the data and how it flows. I grew up really working with AllData because AllData was something that even the dealerships, when I was working in the dealerships, had. So I used it as a source of information while working at the dealership, and in conjunction with and as an additional support to what the dealership OE information gave me. So I became very accustomed and familiar with the AllData system. I've never really worked with, I can say when I've worked with it, but I can't say that I've literally worked with it day in and day out on the Mitchell system. But the Mitchell system has some really nice things and really nice features that I like about it too. So I don't want to talk bad about any of these systems, and if it seems like I am, please understand I'm not. I'm just trying to point out some differences in them. They all have their place in this market. So ALLDATA, to me, has better wiring schematics in it. A little bit easier to follow. All right, so moving on to the repair information. There's a lot of information obviously inside owner's manuals that give us direction and guidance. And today it's even more, and seems like they can refine it on the click of a mouse and redesign the information if necessary. And that happens a lot. As technicians start to use the information, manufacturers are able to glean things out of that and say, hey, we need to make an adjustment or a change to our information. They can do that. In the day of printing manuals, they would have to wait until they went to the huge expense, massive expense of printing repair manuals and send that update out to the manufacturer, to the dealerships from the manufacturer. Today that doesn't happen. It's done and you don't even know it was done. You just click in there and there's all of a sudden a change present. So you may not have even seen the old messed up information. So they're good about fixing stuff now in comparison to what we had in the days of my initial start, when we didn't have computers like we have today with this information system and the ability to refine information. General repair manuals that you're going to be able to get familiar with, and I would say take a note to this. The most common ones out there that you probably will want to work with are the Chiltons, the Motors, the Mitchell, the ALLDATA, and OE stuff, okay? Computer sources: Mitchell On Demand, ALLDATA, Identifix, IATN. International Automotive Technician Network is a big one as well. And now we also have, I need to add to this slide that's not on there, is the Diagnostic Technician Network. But you can register and you can buy a subscription or an account to the IATN network. It's like $8 a month. Highly suggest it. It's worth it. The cost is minimal in comparison to the information you get. You can learn a lot on there, and the same with the Diagnostic Technician Network. You'll learn a lot from these guys. Factory service information, systems, manuals, the internet, and Google are all sources of information for auto repair today. Google, on the other hand, is, how I want to say this, you have to be very cautious with Google. Google a lot of times helps, yes, and I've actually fixed the cars with Google, but a lot of times it leads you down a rabbit hole and causes more problems. You have to be able to discern the difference between a piece of information that's really going to help you fix the car versus a piece of information that is going to lead you down a rabbit hole, and somebody's putting information out there that probably shouldn't be getting put out there, but they feel that they are right, so they put that out there, and Google does not have a bias about that, and they publish it and you get to see it. So it's important to know and be able to discern the difference. And you'll get a lot better at discerning that difference over time as you become more acquainted with the automobile, how it functions, the fundamentals of the automobile and how they're supposed to work, and all of the systems and the components. That comes over a very short period of time as you start to learn terminology and other things that are correct. That's why you're coming to college, so that you can learn that stuff. And hopefully we can give you those tools to be able to help you make that decision and have that discernment within yourself to know what's right and what's wrong. All right. The owner's manuals are small booklets given to the purchaser of the vehicle. It's important to note the difference. Okay. That booklet contains a lot of really good information sometimes for you as a technician, like how to set up the door locks or how not to. It comes with a lot of basic information, how to set the clock, how to reset maintenance reminders, procedures, determining what buttons on the dash do what. Obviously determining special functions specific to the vehicle. Like I said, do I want my door locks to be where the doors lock when I put it in gear? Maybe that's a function that I can manually control as a consumer and owner of that vehicle. And in some cases, maybe not. And that takes a professional level technician to do that and make those changes for you. Okay. So we're general repair manuals. They're published by the companies of the vehicle. So Chrysler, Ford, General Motors. But there's also some other companies out there that publish these manuals. And I want to kind of take you through a little history that comes from my background. I worked for Bosch Automotive Service Solutions. Service Solutions was a company that handled, that owned OTC tools and a whole bunch of other stuff. But they also owned a company called Valley Forge, and Valley Forge was the contracted company to write the service repair manuals for the OE. They didn't do it for all of them. They did the big three here in the United States that I know of, and there were some others in Germany that they did as well. What ones they were, I don't know. But the point behind all that is somebody else is translating this information. The manufacturers give out the information. The engineers give the information to the publishers. The publishers take that information and put it into a so-called organized fashion. And you then take that information, and now you have to use that information that has been translated 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6 times by the time you got it. And maybe during that publishing process, the manufacturer decided, well, I'm going to make this change. Or the publisher said, well, you know what, we can make this change so it'll fit on the page. Or maybe we need to make this change because the information they have and the way they're conveying it is not understandable in the way that they see it anyway. And so they change how they publish that information or convey that information to us, which in turn ends up being a incorrect wiring schematic, for example. I have had multiple times where wiring schematics that were provided by the manufacturer in the published information they're incorrect. The manufacturer provided incorrect information. So the Mitchell manuals, the Motor manuals, the Chilton's manuals, the Hayden's manuals, they're all good and they all carry good content, even online in their online versions. However, they can, just like anybody, be suspect to error because of the publication process. Okay, so service information. Inside the manuals and inside the electronic computer systems, you're going to find service information broke down into sections. Sections such as general information. What is the tire pressure supposed to be? What type of oil does it use? What's the coolant? What type of coolant? Engine. The engine is going to be specific to the engine on the vehicle. Where's the front crank pulley? The crankshaft? What type of pistons are in it? Rods, cranks, clearances, valve clearances, timing of the engine, mechanical timing of the engine. You're going to have sections that is the transmission section. The transmission section, for example, would be all the information about the transmission. Electrical, of course, we've talked already a little bit about electrical wiring schematics and things of that nature and how that plays out. So yeah, electrical's there and part of it in a separate section, etc. There's so many other sections and categories in these manuals and information. The information's pretty deep. The computer really became, to be honest, the PC, the personal computer, became a good lifesaver to us because it certainly makes it faster to find our information now that we have search engines and things of that nature inside the information systems that can help us find them. Okay. Moving on. Repair sections. We have obviously sections that cover the major systems. We have sections that give us the description and the operation of whatever we're working on. So if it's the engine we're working on, we might find a description or an operation. We might find a major system. What's the system? Go back to major systems from the lecture on the automobile. Major system includes the powertrain, right? Explain how to recognize and diagnose problems and inspect them. So you're going to get information that gives you flow charts for diagnostics. You're going to learn that sometimes those flow charts are good and sometimes they're not so good. Sometimes, as I said already earlier, the wiring schematics are complete and it's a good wiring schematic, and sometimes the wiring schematics are not. Okay. So the flat rate manual. The flat rate manual is how you're determined how you get paid. That obviously is now in the computer system as well, and that helps you to calculate the hours for the job. If you're going to change an engine, for example, and it's 4 hours to change that engine, you're going to get paid 4 hours to change that engine because that's what the book says. That's what you get paid. A lot of times, guys, technicians can beat flat rate. I beat flat rate a lot myself. I know Mr. Flint and I've had these conversations. He beats flat rate. Mr. Range, he beats flat rate. Pretty much all of us here at this shop and all of us teachers when we were technicians, we all had to learn how to beat the flat rate system to be able to make a good living. And you can multiply your earnings that way. Time spent can then be multiplied by the shop's hourly rate. So if the shop's hourly rate is $100 an hour and it's 4 hours to change an engine, that's $400 that's going to get paid to the shop for that engine change, okay? And if you're a technician, you can multiply that hourly rate by how much you get paid per hour working for that shop. So if you get paid 20 bucks an hour and it's 4 hours, you're going to get 80 bucks to change that engine, okay? All right, so TSBs or technical service bulletins. And before I get into this, I just want to use I was using an engine as an example. You'll get paid a lot more than 80 bucks to change an engine in a car. Just because of the hours involved. It doesn't take no 4 hours to change an engine per the flat rate book. So leave that in your imagination and in my comments at that. So you can figure things out, especially if you've already worked on a car. All right. So TSBs or technical service bulletins are basically pattern failures. For example, General Motors knows that there is a wire that always gets broke because your foot always rubs, the customer's foot or the owner of the vehicle's foot always rubs across the certain kick panel, and the movement of that kick panel turns the wiring harness in a way that it rubs the wiring harness raw and shorts out a wire or open circuits a wire. And so they see it over and over and over again on the same vehicle, same make, same model, same truck. They put out what's called a technical service bulletin. That technical service bulletin is then sent to every dealership and technician via the computer system, and they are notified that, hey, be aware that if you have a car that comes in with this symptom, this problem, look here first, because we're seeing a pattern or a repeat failure in this area, okay? Factory recalls. Factory recalls are recalls issued by the manufacturer. Most of the time, they won't issue recalls by choice. Most of the time, recalls are issued by force situations where it is a safety-related issue or an emissions-related issue. Other than that, manufacturers generally don't put out recalls for things that go wrong with their car. But the government forces them when it's an emissions-related issue or a safety-related issue. If there's a recall, and that can be identified on a technical service bulletin also in your research on that vehicle for the problem, if there's a recall that's related to what you're doing in the shop, you need to send them to the dealership because the dealership does that for free, and that may fix their car. Otherwise, you're doing a disservice to the customer at that point. So it's important to know that, hey, there's a recall for this. You need to go to the dealer. They don't charge for this to be done. Sometimes even then, the customer will still say, I would rather pay you. Can you do it? Well, I can do it, but I need to get paid, and they're going to pay you for it. So you'd be surprised that some of the customers, they just don't want to go to the dealer. That's why they're at your shop. All right. Technical assistance hotlines. There is technical assistance hotlines with most of the information systems. Mitchell has one. AllData has one, and Identifix has one. The technical assistance hotlines are available for you to call in. Technical assistance hotlines are most commonly associated to the manufacturer, it seems like, where you would call the manufacturer and they're going to say, hey, yeah, okay, do this, do that, do this, do that. But you're going to find out that doing this and doing that is not always the best thing sometimes with the technical assistance hotline, because they assume that you've already done certain X amount of tests in their flow charts before you called them. So they're just going to start digging in, and they might be sending you down a rabbit hole. They're helpful sometimes, especially with repeat failures. They can say, hey, there's a repeat failure out there that we're seeing on a consistent basis with this that has not had a TSB yet. So the technical service hotlines and assistance hotlines are beneficial to you, but that is something that you'll get to where you don't use it unless you are really trying to figure something out and you're buried in something that you just are spending hours and hours of time on and can't get nowhere. You'll learn that the technical assistant hotlines are beneficial and maybe making you think or getting you to think outside the box of somewhere where you weren't thinking before that could help you with that. So, okay, moving on to ordering parts. It's important that you understand and know this information. You'll notice there's some stuff in red, some stuff that's underlined in this slide. What you need to know when ordering parts. Most commonly, you need to know the VIN, the make, the model, the engine size / configuration. I'll come back to that in just a second. And the model year. What I mean by engine configuration, generally under the hood on the emissions label or on a separate label, there is a label, but most commonly it's always found on the emissions label, it seems like, that gives you the engine configuration and or model for that engine. I want to give you a scenario that happened to me. So I have a friend who owns a shop, I'm not going to say where or who it is, that changed a engine in a Hyundai Sonata, 2017 Hyundai Sonata, I believe it was. And he got the engine from the junkyard. And the junkyard said that the engine they were sending him was out of another Sonata, same year, same model, everything, that it looked exactly the same, everything was perfect. So they sent it, he put it in, and it kept setting a cam crank correlation fail code, turning on the check engine light, making it impossible to smog that car. And he could not figure out for the life of him what was wrong. He changed cam sensors, put in, took the front of the motor apart, checked the timing, and everything was perfect. Could not figure out why the car would run, but it would instantly set a cam crank correlation. There was something to do with the way that the front crank pulley was positioned on that model engine versus the other model engine that was on the label under the hood of the vehicle. So it turns out he changed the engine out with the wrong engine and had to get an entirely different engine for the vehicle, which then changed the quote for the customer, because the engine that needed to be in the vehicle was only available as a brand new engine. Nobody in the junkyards anywhere in the state of California had that engine available to replace it. So his quote for his customer that his customer had already approved for $4,500 engine replacement went from $4,500 to $11,000. Now the car's not even worth it at that point. So that put him into a bind where he had an engine sitting on the ground in a crate that the junkyard would not take back because they said the engine's fine. You got the wrong engine. We told you to make sure that the engine numbers were the correct engine lineup, and you gave us this number, and I don't know the whole story behind it all, but I do know that he called me to tell me that, hey, these things are very specific on the engines. You need to make sure that it's the correct engine, exact same engine by part number that's going into the car that came out of the car. Otherwise, you could end up having a lot of problems. Or I don't know, again, exactly all the details of it, but I do know that it was an expensive move for him, and you have to be careful of that stuff, okay? So your model year is important. You may need to know, is it 4x4? Specifics about that, specifics about the engine or the dual overhead cam, etc. Again, model number of the engine is the best way to go. If you're going through the dealership to get the parts, the best thing to do is always call them with the last 8 numbers of the VIN. Most dealerships take the last 8 digits of the VIN, and they are able to identify exactly which parts belong on that car, and they can get you the right part. Okay, which parts stores should you call, guys? Hey, look, they all are decent. They all have their quirks. They all have their negatives that we don't like, and they all have their positives that we love. So it goes both ways. It really depends on what you're chasing, how fast you need something, how bad do you need something, who has the part in stock, who does not have the part in stock. But I will tell you, from a parts store perspective, O'Reilly's, CarQuest, Advanced, Napa, they all sell Moog chassis parts, for example. Moog is Moog. Whether it be sold through CarQuest, whether it be sold through O'Reilly, whether it be sold through Napa. Moog chassis is Moog chassis parts. That's the manufacturer of the part. So the parts store just stocks what manufacturers build for the cars. So a lot of times you can get the same stuff. BWD ignition, for example, which is Borg-Warner distribution, now is part of what's called Standard Motor Products. Those used to be two companies that competed against each other and supplied parts companies with their ignition parts. Now they're one company. You will find Borg-Warner ignition parts at O'Reilly. You will find Borg-Warner ignition parts at CarQuest. You will find Standard Motor Product parts at CarQuest. You'll find Standard Motor Product parts at O'Reilly. Those two companies are exactly the same. So there's some consolidation, and it may be to your benefit to go find out how much of the parts companies are the same company under different names because they've acquired other companies and left the other company's name in the equation. So that's something to keep in mind, all right? VIN identification number. The VIN number has 17 characters on newer vehicles. Each number or letter means something to the manufacturer. The most important to memorize are the 10th digit and the 8th digit. The 10th digit is the year of the vehicle. The 8th digit is the engine code of the vehicle. Less important are the 4th, 5th digits. Those are the body codes, and the 3rd, which is the make of the vehicle. Okay, so we're going to watch a video on VINs and how the VIN number works. So we'll get ready for that video, and then afterwards we'll come back, okay?
A vehicle identification number, or VIN for short, is a unique 17-digit alphanumeric identifier that's given to every vehicle. They're clearly visible on the driver's side dashboard at the base of the windshield and elsewhere on the body. Before 1980, VINs were not standardized and varied from company to company. In the U.S. today, they all follow the same format outlined by the government. Lots of information is contained in these long strings of characters, from which manufacturer built a particular vehicle, to where it was made, to what kind of engine is under the hood. But they're a jumbled mess unless you know how to decipher them. Let's dissect a VIN that we pulled from one of the vehicles in the press fleet. Starting at the front, the first 3 characters form what they call a world make identifier. The 1 tells us this car was assembled in the U.S. The G tells us it's a product from General Motors, and the 6 identifies it as a Cadillac. The next 2 characters tell us the model and trim level. Here, DP means our car is a CTS Premium with a navigation system. The 6th digit is the body style. 1 means it's either a coupe or a 2-door. The 7th character indicates what kind of safety equipment is installed on our CTS, among other things. And E in this spot means it has front, side, and side curtain airbags. The letter D is in the 8th slot, which is the engine code. It tells us we've got a 3.6-liter direct injection V6 under the hood. The 9th number in our VIN sequence is called the check digit, and it has nothing to do with the car. It's used to mathematically verify the accuracy of the VIN. The next character tells us when our Caddy was built. In this case, B means it's a 2011. Next up, the 11th number is the plant code. The number 0 corresponds to GM's Lansing Grand River factory in Michigan. Rounding out our VIN, the numbers 12 through 17 serve as a serial number. Characters will vary from manufacturer to manufacturer and from year to year, but some parts of VINs are standardized, like the World Make Identifier. Here's an easy way to tell where a car was built by looking at the first digit. Generally speaking, A1 means it was made in the US. 2, it was built in Canada. 3 is Mexico. 4 and 5 are the US as well, and 6 is Australia. J stands for Japan, K for South Korea, S and W signify Germany. Interestingly, you'll never see the letters I, O, or Q in a VIN because they look too much like zeros and ones. It's also important to note that different companies use different characters. For instance, in GM parlance, an engine code of D corresponds to a 3.6 liter V6, but to another manufacturer, it could stand for a V12 or a diesel or nothing at all. And there you got it. Now you too can read a VIN.
All right, so that kind of gives us the picture for the VIN of how it works and functions. Moving on to the next slide here. This is kind of a layout for you of the VIN, but it's important to note that the VIN is located on the door a lot of times. It's located on the dashboard, and sometimes it's even located on the label under the hood. But the most common places are the dashboard, front left corner window. You have to look through the front windshield usually, and on the door are your fastest points. On a lot of the newer cars and cars today, you're going to actually find VINs engraved into the fenders and into the components of the car that can be stripped off and utilized somewhere else. So it's important to note that they are doing that for theft purposes to help find stuff when it's stolen. So if you get something from a junkyard, make sure that the VINs are either changed or noted as to changed and where it came from on the work order. Document that stuff for yourself because you're responsible to account for that if for some reason it comes up as a stolen part. But I think that any law enforcement officer, as long as you had accountability and showed where you got it from and why and your legitimate business, I don't think it would be an issue. Just need to make sure you have accountability there. All right.
All right, guys. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's talk about Identifix, ALLDATA, and ProDemand, and show you some of the systems and how they work and what to look for when you come to Bakersfield College. This is my desktop in my office, so there's a lot of stuff going on here, so just kind of ignore some of this stuff. It's not going to there's nothing here that is of real importance or value other than these icons here. So we have Identifix, ALLDATA, and ProDemand. If you see Teamworks on the computer, don't worry about that. That's not for you. You have no need to use that as of right now. That's an invoicing software that I've been playing with to learn how to use it through Mitchell, that we're offered as a school. But as of right now, it has nothing to do for you guys or with you guys. But it's there. Identifix, on the other hand, is here. That's one information system that is a web-based system. ALLDATA, which is a web-based system, and ProDemand. Now I know ALLDATA right now, I clicked on before I started this video, and for whatever reason there's a problem with the link in ALLDATA service. So that's being worked on to fix, but they don't anticipate it being fixed for 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot the video anyway, and we'll just go to the website for ALLDATA and talk about that. But ProDemand is a information system owned by Mitchell, and it pops up and it looks like this. And when you get to this screen on campus, on any of your computers at campus, and you can ask us as teachers for the icon, so you can load this on your personal computer too. And as long as you're connected to the Wi-Fi in the auto shop area, you'll be able to access this ProDemand software. And the same goes for ALLDATA. You can do it from your phone, from your iPad, whatever. We just give you the address link and you log in and go. But again, you can't do it from anywhere except in the Wi-Fi at the Automotive area on campus. So you click log in, and it takes us right into the main menu, I guess, of the system. And you can choose what you're working on, the vehicle, make, model, year. If you've already selected that vehicle, you can simply close out of that by going here to VIN or plate. If you've got a license plate of the vehicle, you can take that and type it in, or the VIN. The nice thing about using the VIN is that it gives you the vehicle and all the specific details of the vehicle. So when you're searching information like technical service bulletins and things like that are in here, it's very specific to that car. So you're able to find a lot more information. It's a way of doing refinement of the data. So moving forward to the next menu, I'm going to choose vehicle history. And I have a 2007 Toyota Yaris with a 1.5 liter engine in here. So I'll select that just to save the time. Once I get into the menu, I have all of my menu options up here. One of the features they just added over the summer recently that's really nice is all the lubrication specs and tire specs and all that stuff right here. So it's a quick link. These are kind of quick hot buttons into stuff that's embedded inside the information system. Diagnostic trouble code information, reset procedures for the tire pressure monitoring system, and oil specs and things of that nature. Fluid capacities are all in here. Tire specs, what the tire pressure should be, things to that category. One of the things that you need to know, even though they published in here, for example, tire specification of being 32 psi in the rear, 32 psi in the front, you still need to check the placard inside the door and confirm that that's the case. If the tire placard inside the driver's door is not present, it's been removed or damaged and you can't read it, then you can go with this system. But always go with what's on the car first, because it may not be accurate information in here, as we've discussed already. So going back out of this, here you have the components: disc brake and pad, battery, brake rotor, wheels. So this goes back to the very first lecture, the automobile. What is the difference between a part? What is the difference between a component? What is the difference between an assembly? And what is the difference between a major system or a system? So here I have a battery, brake pads. There's a lot of information out there, 17,000 search results regarding disc brake pads. So if you want to replace the disc brake pads and find out what it's going to be involved, here takes you into all your procedures and processes and testing tips, parts, labor. If I click on parts and labor, it gives me what it would take for all the brakes all the way around. It pays 2.2 hours to replace all the brakes on this car. Front brakes both sides is 1 hour. Rear brakes both sides is 1.4 hours, and that's because they're drum brakes. So brake hose, obviously 2/10, so basically 10 minutes right there. Brake hose replacement, 3/10 on the other side, so 15 minutes to replace those. So that kind of gives you a layout of the menus and how it works in the Pro Demand system. If you have any questions, make sure you pop them up on the discussion board again, and we'll move from there. So I'm going to close this one out now, and let's go to the Identifix system. So now let's get started on Identifix. So here you have a view of the Identifix system. Identifix Direct Hit is another name, is embedded in a lot of the aftermarket scan tools that we have in the shop. You have a link to Identifix through the Encore scan tool. You have a link to Identifix through the Autel scan tool, I believe. And you have information that you can use in the Identifix system within those tools. And the advantage to that is the scan tool auto-populates the database in Identifix and searches Identifix for stuff that it's seen. So it's kind of a cool little system. It's not fault-free, though. There are issues with that. Sometimes you find yourself not really being able to get to the right information based on the fail code. So you have to do some refinements of your searches in here. So I'm going to select a vehicle. Let's just choose a 2000. Let's do a 2008. Let's go to a Toyota Tundra. Toyota Tundra. And let's choose a 5.7 liter. And I'm going to select that vehicle. And when I select that vehicle, it pops into all of my information on the right hand side on how to use the manuals, the owner's manual. All that stuff is published on the right hand side over here where it says service and repair manuals. Okay, So that's all your factory service and repair manuals. Over here under the red box, you'll see OEM wiring diagrams, color wiring diagrams, and motor wiring diagrams. And then OEM component location, motor component location. Motor is a service manual publishing company. They no longer do service manuals in hard paper that I know of. They mostly do, they do still have some. They make like the emissions guides and things like that in paper. But mostly they are all electronic now. And Solara is the company that bought Identifix. And they also bought Motor and Chilton's, and they own a couple of the other publishing companies. So Solara is a parent company of a lot of these companies that publish this stuff. So the nice thing about Identifix and what they call and what they refer to as direct hit is this. If I have a fail code of a P0300, let's say P0300, I'm typing that in the search menu, which is a random cylinder misfire. And I put that in and I hit search. It brings up a whole bunch of search results regarding P0300. And so with these search results, I can then come down and see what other technicians have done to fix the P0300. In this case over here, you can see 2 technicians have replaced the timing chain. Over here, 2 variable timing VVT solenoid connectors were replaced. And here, there was a fuel system issue. Don't know what it was. They're saying fuel system. Did they replace the whole thing? I don't know. But here's the test procedure. Check to see if the variable valve timing solenoid connectors have not been swapped from previous work that have been performed. Check to see if the VVT solenoid is sticking. Tap on it with, and then you can continue to read that if you want to. And you can go confirm fix details. And this is all of the technicians that posted and what they posted and what they did to fix that problem. Okay, so you can see how that works like that. Now if I hit back and go back to where I was, right now let me close out their survey. I come over here and I go to this area and I can keep scrolling down. In this particular post, 3 people have posted confirmed fixes. These are all confirmed fixes. Notice here, confirmed. That means that it has been verified by somebody at Solara that these things, by talking to the technicians who posted this, that these things fixed that problem. Okay, so it's really nice. I'll be honest, I go to Identifix, and every technician has their own way of going about things, but I usually go to Identifix kind of as my very first pass in my research work. Once I get the fail code and I have done my triage on the vehicle and I have a idea of what the scan tool is telling me, or what the brakes are doing, or where the squeak is coming from, or whatever it is on the car that you're diagnosing, I then sit down at Identifix and do a little research on the situation. I will be honest, about 70% of the time I fix the car by using Identifix. That increases your flat rate time, that increases your productivity time. But this system is very much so dependent upon technician input. It's also got a lot of really good information in the way of service manuals and things of that nature too. When we go back to the home screen here, and you click in, so like for example, coloring wiring diagrams, I can come in here and we'll pop open the forced entry circuit wiring diagram, and here it's all color. The problem is that you've got to be careful with this is it may not be a OE wiring schematic. It may only be a schematic from a redraw. And sometimes the redraws are better because they find mistakes in the OEs. So it goes back and forth. So like maybe I'm going to use this right now, but if I have something that's somewhat questionable to how they drew the circuit, does it make sense to me? and you'll learn more about circuits in electrical class and how to break down a circuit and how to follow a wiring schematic around. You're an introduction to auto right now, so you don't really have to know wiring schematics. I don't expect you to know wiring schematics. I'm just saying that as you go through the program, you're going to learn what this stuff means and how important it is to decipher the data, and not just decipher the data, but also use your sense of common sense in your training that you've obtained through college of how to break down the wiring schematics and make sure that they're reading correctly and make sure that you're learning everything correctly to be able to diagnose that vehicle properly. If you're not getting the correct information in your research and you're not learning the correct information during your research process of the repair, you're not going to correctly diagnose the vehicle either. But a lot of times that can be information, misled information, okay? So we'll go ahead and jump off of this and see if there's anything else here that's of importance that I feel that you should have real quick. Going back to the home screen, maintenance. It does have the maintenance stuff up here, which generally clicks you into customer plan, technician plan, maintenance schedulers, things like that you can use. What maintenance should be done at how many miles. So right now I should pretty much have had everything replaced in my truck except for a couple of other things here. It looks like engine coolant is due. Not yet, but I've already done it. So I do more maintenance than the average person on my car, and you'll find that you do too once you learn all the stuff you're going to learn in this program. But the overall maintenance schedule that customers see that you have to work by for the customer in a lot of cases is here for you as well. So there's a lot of good information. They have a hotline when you have a subscription that's active. You can call them and ask them for help, or you can send in a ticket and then they will call you back. They have 47, last I heard, the number was 47 ASE Master Techs who sit behind the desk and help you navigate through wiring schematics or problems you may be having with a specific vehicle. This platform has been around for probably, I'm going to say, a good close to 20 years now. And these guys started out as Identifix, a small company in Minnesota that grew very quickly, very similar to IATM, but they took a different path and started to be more focused, I guess is the way to say it, on technical data that were really fixing the cars. What was it that you did to find the problem, and what was it that you did to fix the problem, versus the flow charts that OE manufacturers give you in their service manual, versus the traditional method of just following the process of what the book says. This kind of gave a platform for technicians to vocalize, hey, the book is wrong, and this is what we did, and this is how we found it, and this, in fact, did fix the car. So it grew really fast and has become a very, very good tool in our industry. And most shops today find it almost impossible to function without something like this. So they will have Identifix, or they will have All Data or something to that nature to be able to help you navigate. All right, I'm going to now shift back over to All Data, and we'll get you set up and let you see what I can show you from their website at least. Okay, let's start talking about All Data. So the system currently on campus, as I'm shooting this video, is down, and I cannot navigate through the All Data system like I did with Mitchell and Identifix for you. But what I'm going to do is take you to their website. I'm going to show you some of the benefits of All Data, watch a couple of their videos, and show you how to do some self-learning that I'm encouraging you to go out and do on your own. It's not an assignment, but it's a strong encouragement to go out and do some research on this yourself and watch some of the training videos. So this is the website, alldata.com. And inside the alldata.com, you can click on support and training and click on product training. Once you get into the product training website, you can scroll down here to videos. And on the video link, it'll open you up to YouTube. And you'll see all of their training videos that they offer on YouTube. And I would suggest watching several of these so that you could really start to learn how to research and refine information. You're going to need this in labs throughout your program. You're going to end up using this in life. This becomes a very valuable tool for you in a lot of ways. So you want to make sure that you are navigating this system properly. I'm going to play one video that kind of introduces you to ALLDATA, and then you guys can, from there, make your own introduction by going to the ALLDATA website, jumping in and doing some learning on the system. And then I will, after completing this video, we'll get set up to do Chrysler stuff, and I'll log into my Chrysler system and let you guys see how OE manufacturer and GM, how they do their individual systems for their information, okay?
The cars these days are very hard. It's all electronic, computerized, sensors. If you don't have the proper equipment to diagnose these cars, you can never make it in this business.
Us as a repair shop facility, we'll deal with all different makes and models. It'll tell you what OEM specs are. So if you have to, let's say, put a rotor, it'll tell you what the minimum and maximum thickness of the rotor has to be.
I use ALLDATA for everything. I mean, something as simple as an oil change appointment, all the way to wiring diagrams for the technicians to help them diagnose a car, labor times, I mean everything. We use it for everything.
When you look up a vehicle, if it's a trouble code that you have, like a PO300, which is a random misfire, you can go into the OEM repair icon, and it'll tell you if you have to check the cylinder leak or coil or wire or spark plug.
And information is key these days to figuring out cars. So ALLDATA, is on top of, giving the information you need.
You'll have 3 or 4 different mechanics that had the same issue and what they did to repair that code.
I mean, I've used other services, and all that I see is a lot better. They're up to date, their software's there, it's consistent. always upgrading to the cars that are coming in, and they're there. Anytime I need to call, they're there. They pick up the phone and they help us.
All right, guys. So that's the all data and an overview, and the best overview I can give you at this time of all data. And I'm going to encourage you and ask you to please go to the link for www.alldata.com, get into the training section, and start watching some of those videos and stuff. It will really help you. Even here in Intro Auto, you're going to need to use this for your research work and the stuff you're doing. So become familiar with this very quickly, and hopefully you'll find that useful. So now I'm going to set up and get us into the Chrysler system, and you can see, and I'll navigate you through the Chrysler website, okay? All right, so here we are in the Chrysler system, logged in to what's called Dealer Connect. This is how Chrysler does their stuff. I'm logged in as a technician right now on the Chrysler system, and you can see all of their systems that they have in here: DC mail, training, network, consumer experience, parts, service, so forth. Obviously, service is where you're wanting to be. If you are service writer, you'll still be in the service tab, but you can come into service and it takes you down all of the different information: VIN inquiry, multiple VIN inquiries, powertrain inspection worksheets. They give you all kinds of tools in here, but you will get training if you go to the dealer on how to navigate this website and how to use it. You'll understand how to use all of the information here. The information goes extremely deep because you are a dealer level. They give you a lot of access to a lot of information that is not to be shared. As you notice, the notice, I had to accept it when I came onto the website that says you will not divulge any of this information. You will not divulge any information you glean from here. And the reason being is because Chrysler has this all protected. So Chrysler has what's called intellectual property rights to this. And they could sue very easy anybody that violates that. So I'm not going to get real deep into this with you guys because of the liability that's attached to that if I violate what I accepted when I logged in. But I can certainly show you on a one-on-one basis if you want to know more than what I show you here. But this gives you the ability to do inquiry on parts. It gives you the ability to do inquiries on your training as a technician or as a service writer, whatever your role is in that dealership. You can click on training and get into your Performance Institute training. So that's important because you, as a technician, it doesn't matter if you're an ASE master technician. It doesn't matter if you are a technician that's worked for 35 years on Chryslers in an independent garage. If you don't have the Chrysler Level 1 training as a minimum, you will do nothing more than change oil at the Chrysler dealership until you get your Level 1 training done. So it's real important that you understand a lot of the dealers all have that similar process. They all go about it a little bit differently, but they all have a similar process where you have to get to a certain level of manufacturer training before you can start to do warranty repair work and do work that you get paid for as a technician beyond just a lube rack and changing oil. So if you go to a dealership as an entry-level tech, or even as a journeyman tech with tons of experience without Level 1 training, you're probably not going to do much more than change oil until you get your level 1 training done. So this training becomes very important to you to get past all the level 1 stuff. And I did my level 1 so that I could have access to this system. And it took me about almost, I'm going to say about 120 or 130 hours to work through all of that training. So it is intense. There's a lot of training to do. But this gives you kind of an insight into what the Chrysler system looks like and how it works. Here I can go into sales and see sales information. You have access to everything Chrysler once you're in this system and working at a dealership. So service-wise, though, you would come here and you would go to, let's say, service information. So service information in the Chrysler world now lies within the tool called the YTech tool. And you can access that information from the tool directly while you're working on the car. I can't log into it right now because I don't have a car to plug into to show you how that all works. But you plug their scan tool in, you log into your scan tool system through the dealer portal. Their scan tool lies in the cloud. So the YTech module that you will see here at the campus that we have, this plugs into the car. It connects to the internet by itself and then goes out to the cloud. I then come in from any computer anywhere in the world, for that matter, and tie into that tool through the cloud, and I can see what that car is doing, or what I can get to the information on that car and scan that car and work on that car. I can then get into all the service information, the books, the service manuals for everything about that car. So anything else that they put up here is all just support to that system. They don't have service manuals posted in the Dealer Connect system. So you can then go back to like All Data, Identifix, Mitchell, and get information because they keep those things pretty current. Or you can buy the factory scan tool for Chrysler and get it that way. But there's a fee to that. They charge for this information because it's called intellectual properties. So, at any rate, this is the Chrysler system. I'll now jump over and log into the GM system real quick so you can see how that works. Okay, so now I'm logged into the GM dealership, GM dealer stuff. This here is the different departments that you have once you log in. And GM, based on the department you are employed in, gives you access to certain information. So I'm logged into service. So if I go into service, it'll bring me up to the service department. And it gives me the ability to get to all kinds of different information that allows me to be able to see things I need to fix the car or to service the car, to perform the functions and duties of the service department technician. The Center for Learning is where you would go to do all of your training and all of that stuff that is technician that we just talked about with Chrysler. You need to be able to get in and do your training and knock that stuff out quick for these dealers. That's what will solidify you as a technician for showing that you want to be there, that you want to work there. And it will give you more access to more information and the ability to do more work and get beyond the warrant, get beyond the lube rack at the dealership. GM very much so is just like Chrysler. You have a level 1 that you have to get through and a level 2 before you can get off the lube rack and get into the shop. So they want you to be able to get that training quickly and fast. This lists out all your different departments. Obviously App Center pretty much gives you the access to the apps that you can put up and pin over here. That I've already pinned some of these apps up over here, you can see. But service information wise in GM is by VIN. You type in the VIN number. That way you're getting specific information. Here you have TIS2 web links. TIS2 web is for programming and functions on the car. Find a document by bulletin service numbers. And under the new system that's not showing up here because I don't have that loaded on this computer, I have to be present in a dealership in order to load that on the computer. Under the new tech, what they call tech link, the tech link is very much so like Chrysler's, tied to the scan tool and to the MDI unit and the MDI2 unit. So depending on what car you're in, you can click right into the information specific about that car. But if you are an aftermarket shop that's out there working without that dealership access, you can get this information by paying for it to GM. It's like $3,500 a year to be able to access the system. But you can then use this system in this way and say, okay, I'm working on a 2017 Chevrolet, and it's going to be a Bolt, which we have at this college. And here it gives me my service manual and information about it. And I can get into bulletins by category. This is all the bulletins for everything that's ever been done to the car. View the bulletins. So you could click here. And this is all the technical service bulletins that have ever come out on this car. Technical service, these are information bulletins about it. And these are technical service bulletins. So technical service bulletin would look like this, and it tells you, hey, if you see this happening, and it gives you all the details and information about it and how to fix it, parts that you need, service procedure, and so forth. So GM has a very good information system that it becomes easy to navigate once you've used it for a little while. Nothing to be afraid of. You may get to access this in my class or Mr. Flint's class while you're working in the shop. We both have access. So any rate, that's the GM overview of the GM system. Very quick, obviously. I'm not going to get into a lot of details. Again, we're introduction to automotive. So we don't get into the factory systems though until you're into engine performance, advanced engine performance, and electrical and advanced electrical. So you'll get to use these systems there potentially. And that's all I guess I have to say about GM and the Global Connect system. So if you have any other questions, post them up on the document share board. Talk to you later.